We live in interesting times. Today's stories. A worldwide shortage of face masks. Russian pharmacies have been accused of profiteering from the coronavirus scare. Now, that virus scare does not discourage thousands of couples who tied the knot in South Korea. Working moms try to find affordable housing in the San Francisco Bay Area. That Albanian earthquake exposes shoddy builders. Commuters scramble after motorcycle taxis were banned in the Nigerian capital city. India wants to become a market leader in the weapons trade. Robots polish mirrors for a giant telescope. It's getting warmer in Antarctica. The Baltimore Museum of Art dedicates 2020 to women. Stuntmen want to be recognized. The Canadian Music Expo. And in sports, the Canadian men's national volleyball team is off to the Summer Olympics in Tokyo. I'm Thomas I. Likeness with Eagle News, broadcasting from our studio in Edmonton, Canada, bringing you stories from around the globe. Coronavirus continues to top the news, with tens of thousands of people infected and more than 600 deaths. Our coverage today focuses on some of the behind-the-scenes stories. First, the World Health Organization says globally, we're running out of personal protective equipment to keep healthcare workers safe from the virus. This shortage includes face masks. Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus says stockpiles have been deleted. He says there just aren't enough face masks and respirators to meet the needs of the WHO and its partners.
There is limited stock of PPE, and we need to make sure we get it to the people who need it most, in the places that need it most. The first priority is health workers. The second priority is those who are sick or caring for someone who is sick. WHO discourages stockpiling of PPE in countries and areas where transmission is low.
Michael Ryan, who is head of health emergencies for the WHO, says the situation is serious. Ryan says countries around the world have to cooperate.
We need solidarity not only between countries, but we need deep solidarity between the public and the private sector to ensure that we do not see a future in which health workers are forced to take care of patients without protective equipment. That is not something any of us wish to witness.
Some countries have already responded to the shortage. In Taiwan, the government has begun rationing surgical masks. People are lining up at government-registered pharmacies to buy the masks. They are limited to 2 per week. Now, in Vietnam, a factory making the masks has actually stepped up production. TNG Textiles says it has added extra shifts and is using fabric normally used for making shirts to produce the extra masks. Currently, the country is making more than 2 million face masks. In Russia, some pharmacies have been accused of profiteering off the coronavirus, and that has angered Russian President Vladimir Putin. The drugstores have been accused of hiking the price of face masks as demand for them soars. Putin has ordered the closure of those businesses. Russia shares a 4,000-kilometer border with China. 2 cases of coronavirus have been reported. Both patients are Chinese citizens and are being treated in hospitals in Siberia. In South Korea, big celebrations, graduation ceremonies, and K-pop concerts have been canceled over fears that these large events could spread the coronavirus. Authorities have even asked religious groups to cooperate. But that request was ignored by at least one church in the country. The threat of the coronavirus didn't discourage thousands of couples who showed up for a massive wedding service. Nearly 6,000 identically dressed couples got married at a huge wedding ceremony. Some of them wore face masks. A festive mood filled the venue as the newlyweds took group photos and were congratulated by friends and relatives. They came from 64 countries, but followers from China were asked to stay home. We now put a human face on the homeless problem in the San Francisco Bay Area. Skyrocketing rental rates have left many people without a place to live. This is the story of Dominique Walker. She moved back from Mississippi to her native California last year. Walker had planned to pursue a nursing degree while caring for her two small children. Initially, she stayed with family and in hotels as she looked for a home. Quickly, she realized she could not afford anything in the Bay Area. On the verge of homelessness, she and several other mothers in the same predicament occupied a vacant house in Oakland last November. They were hoping to raise awareness about the state's homelessness crisis. That gamble worked. Although the group, known as Moms for Housing, was evicted from the house last month, their initiative has prompted officials to vow to do more to address the issue. Walker says children are hurt if they don't have a proper place to live.
And homelessness affects your child's brain development, their physical and mental health. So for my children, I've seen my children develop since they've had shelter, a stable place to live. My son said his first words here, he took his first steps here, and it was amazing to provide shelter.
Another member of the group is Misty Cross, a homeless mother with 4 children. She is angered by speculators who buy up houses and leave them vacant, waiting for the price to rise.
These big industries are able to come into areas like this, purchase most of the homes, and then they're sitting on the market to where they're making money even though they're not renting them out.
Carol Fife, director of a nonprofit in Oakland, says most of these people have jobs. They just can't afford the rents.
But I have friends who live here and have lived here for several months. And it's one of the encampments that is set to be cleared out soon by the city of Oakland. I know that the company has complained, there are customers that have complained, but right now people have nowhere else to go.
Twin solitudes in the San Francisco Bay Area, the prosperous and the homeless. Some follow-up now on that deadly earthquake in Albania 2 months ago. 51 people died in that calamity. Many of them were killed when poorly constructed buildings collapsed. Now, the government is shining the spotlight on chaotic and unregulated builders in the country. The government has targeted builders, engineers, and officials who have ignored building codes. Deputy Interior Minister Rovina Voda says they won't escape the long arm of the law.
Because all those people who are responsible, for the destructions, from the earthquake, of course, they will go before the justice.
More than 80 people have been arrested so far. Almost 90 buildings were completely destroyed by the quake, and more than 80,000 damaged. Up next, a traffic report from Lagos, Nigeria. India wants to become a go-to supplier of military equipment. A new giant telescope will give us a closer look at the stars. Things are heating up in Antarctica. Famine hits war-torn zoos in Yemen. This is Eagle News. You're watching Eagle News. I'm Thomas I. Likeness. Traffic chaos in the Nigerian capital of Lagos. The government has put a partial ban on motorcycle taxis operating in the city, and that has commuters scrambling for other ways to get around. The government says it acted following a growing number of fatal accidents. Roads in the city of 20 million are congested. Now, the ban will mean that motorcycle taxis can no longer operate on main commercial roads and most residential streets. This real estate lawyer says he's spending an additional 2 hours in traffic.
Now, it's difficult to estimate. So, for instance, on Monday, when the ban started, I spent roughly 7 hours on the road. 7 hours of traffic time. On Tuesday, I spent 9 hours in traffic. Yesterday was quite light because I didn't have to move up and down. So I spent a lesser time in traffic, just 4 hours. Today, I don't know how much I spent in traffic. So I try to calculate how much time I'm spending on the road vis-a-vis time I'm spending in the office. So a 30 minutes journey, for instance, is now 2 hours.
And this man says a lot of people have been hurt by the ban.
Yes, the policy has its merits, but the demerits far outweighs the merits. A government is supposed to look at the people. What does the people really want? We are in a nation where people with master's degrees and PhD survive by that senseless menial jobs. So now banning it is like taking life off many of these people, taking life off many of these families.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi wants his country to get into the weapons trade in a big way. Modi wants to see a Made in India sticker on more military equipment that is sold worldwide. The country hopes to export more than $5 billion worth of defense equipment over the next 5 years. Currently, India is the world's second largest arms importer after Saudi Arabia, and Russia is the country's main supplier. But Modi says things are changing. He says since 2015, India has made remarkable progress in the domestic production of military equipment. Last year, India fought air battles with arch-rival Pakistan over the disputed territory of Kashmir. The country wants to bolster its combat capabilities to counter regional rivals, including China. In Saint-Benoît, France, robots are precision polishing the mirrors for that future giant European telescope. Now, the telescope is being assembled in the Atacama Desert in Chile. Xavier Bacons is the Director General of the European Southern Observatory. He says when completed in about 5 years, the telescope will be the largest in the world.
Here's the ELT, the cathedral of the 21st century. What you can see here is the structure of the telescope only. This weighs about 3,700 tons. The primary mirror, it's 39.3 meters. It consists of 798 hexagons. Each one is about 1.5 meters across. They will be polished here at Safran.
Bacons says astronomers will be able to see things they've never seen before.
This will actually transform our view of the universe. With a telescope like this one and with the technological developments that we are undertaking, we should be able to obtain images of planets like Earth, orbiting stars like our own sun outside the solar system.
And the precision to which these mirrors must be polished? Well, if they were the size of France, the acceptable defect would be the size of a ladybug. That's why robots are doing the job. Record high temperatures are being observed in Antarctica, and that has the World Meteorological Organization concerned. Now, these higher temperatures have resulted in the retreat of glaciers along the west coast of the South Pole continent. Claire Nullis says even though it's summertime in the southern hemisphere, the latest temperature record of 18.3 degrees Celsius is worrisome.
The amount of ice lost annually from the Antarctic ice sheet increased at least sixfold between 1979 and 2017. 87% of glaciers along the west coast of the Antarctic Peninsula have retreated in the last 50 years, with most of these showing an accelerated retreat in the past 12 years.
Accelerating melt-off from glaciers and ice sheets in Antarctica is helping drive sea level rises. And that threatens coastal megacities and small island nations. In war-torn Yemen, life is a struggle for millions of civilians. But also facing an uncertain future are creatures in the country's neglected zoos. They include lions, leopards, and baboons. At the country's main zoo in the capital of Sana'a, a man unloaded 12 dead donkeys. They're trucked in each day to feed 31 resident lions. Lion keeper Amin El-Majdi says some animals, including 4 lions that perished in 2017, have already starved to death. Zoo authorities say they're struggling to feed the animals, but rampant inflation makes supplies expensive. As well, the number of visitors has plummeted since the war broke out, reducing revenue to the zoo. The zoo currently makes between $3,000 and $5,000 per month, but that's not enough to feed the animals and pay employee salaries. Like the rest of the country, where millions have been driven to the brink of famine after 5 years of conflict, the zoo's more than 1,100 animals are at risk. Among those fighting on behalf of the animals is Kim Michelle Broderick. She's the founder of One World Actors Animal Rescues. That group raises money to keep Yemen's zoo creatures alive. Of the country's 3 main zoos, Broderick says the one in Sana'a is in better condition than the others, but she adds, all are in poor condition. Still to come, a Baltimore museum marks the 100th anniversary of women being allowed to vote in the United States. Stuntmen want an Oscar, a report on the Canadian Music Expo, and Canada has an entry in men's volleyball in the Tokyo Olympics. You're watching Eagle News. This is Eagle News. I'm Thomas I. Likeness. It was 1 century ago that women were given the right to vote in the United States. The Baltimore Museum of Arts has made a special commitment this year to mark that anniversary. Museum Director Christopher Bedford says the museum has dedicated 2020 to women. He says they will only purchase works by women this year.
So I think when we looked at 2020 and the centennial of women's suffrage in this country, there was a deep desire on the part of the board in particular and the board chair to say, well, given the magnitude of the moment and given our past approaches to a change agenda, doesn't it make sense to apply the same logic to calendar year 20 and emphasize women artists as the core of our exhibition program?
Bedford says they have 23 exhibitions scheduled.
That's 23 exhibitions focused on women artists and women leaders across the institution throughout the entire calendar year. And then, in addition, every department is obliged to propose objects for acquisition for purchase that are made by women.
Bedford hopes other museums follow suit. These folks are the unsung heroes and villains in the movies, and now they want to be recognized for their achievements. Stuntmen say it's time for their own awards category. Stuntmen are an indispensable part of major Hollywood productions, but they don't yet have an Oscars category. Stuntman Daniel Locicero says his work goes far beyond the stunts.
You know, whether we see our face or not, they need to be recognized for sure, just for the work they do, you know, because they are there not just to do the stunt, but to make sure everybody is safe as well.
Actor Courtney M. Moore says stunt people are extremely versatile.
So like he said, it's just those things that you can add to the resume. So when someone's like, oh, we don't have to hire 3 people to do this job, we can hire you because you can do all 3 of them. You know, then it gives you an upper hand on maybe somebody else too.
At this year's Academies, stuntmen will again remain on the sidelines. Musicians, producers, and fans converged on Toronto for the Canadian Music Expo. That story from Eagle News correspondent Angela Milano.
These days of digital music, at a time when anyone can stream music from their phones and musicians can release their new songs through popular streaming apps like Spotify and Apple Music, experiencing music live like getting an autograph, owning vinyls, meeting musicians, talking and connecting in person has become a cherished and much coveted experience. In Toronto, Canadians are keeping the physical aspect of music alive here at the 4th Annual Canadian Music Expo at the Mississauga Convention Centre, where musicians, producers, and fans step outside of the digital world and experience music IRL, in real life. This event is filled with almost everything related to music, especially things and work that listeners and fans don't get to see. There are sessions where you can meet, take a photo with your favorite musician, and get an autograph. The Musicians Alley is a place to meet other musicians and talk about anything and everything related to music, like songwriting, equipment, tours, and much more. For music fans, there's also the Record Corner, where you can buy records, CDs, cassettes, and other merch by your favorite musician. A music expo is not complete if it doesn't have its own live music show. This year, acoustic artists perform for all music fans. Some of the performers are Matt Zadie, Bree Taylor, Binge Ninja, Natasha Meister, and Alyssa Pridham. There is also a special tribute to the late Canadian musician, lyricist, and drummer Neil Elwood Peart. Fans can drop letters and make a donation in memory of the famous Canadian drummer for the Canadian Cancer Society. It is often said that music is a universal language. Music is always regarded as a way to connect. In this world of social media, music streaming, and digital downloads, wherein you don't have to step out of your home to get music, it is important to remember that music has a physical quality to it, something that you can hold in your hands, something that you can see in person, and something you can listen and connect to live. From Mississauga Convention Center, Angela Milano, Eagle News, 1 with 25.
The Canadian men's national volleyball team has earned the final spot in the 2020 Summer Olympics to be held in Tokyo. We have details on that from Eagle News correspondent Anthony Sevilla.
The Canadian men's national volleyball team officially punched their ticket to the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games after claiming the top spot in this year's NORCECA men's qualification tournament in Vancouver. This year, the North, Central America and Caribbean Volleyball Confederation, or NORCECA, chose Canada to host its three-day round-robin tournament. Canada's 3-0 win over Puerto Rico in Day 3 of the tournament officially claimed the final slot into this year's Summer Olympics. Canada also finished with a convincing 3-0 win over Mexico in Day 1, followed by a huge 3-2 comeback win over Cuba in Day 2. In the previous Summer Olympics, Canada's appearance in Rio 2016 ended their 24-year Olympic drought at this event. With Canada set to compete in Tokyo later this year, this will mark the first time ever that Canada's men's volleyball team will compete in consecutive Olympic competitions.
It feels pretty good. I think it's first time I think Canada has qualified 2 quads in a row. It meant a lot last time, but it means the same right now, so it's pretty exciting right now.
You know, some of the guys on the team have experienced it, and I'm happy for the guys that haven't experienced it that we get to do it again. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and we have some time now to prepare and get ready for July.
Well, everybody now will go back to the professional teams, and we'll have a long professional season, but that's going to be a really good time for us to work on the individual weaknesses we have already and really prepare that for Tokyo. And it's going to be a busy summer, but a really enjoyable one.
The Canadians will have a few days to celebrate before returning to the professional clubs in Europe, South America, or Asia. Following that, they will return to Canada for training camp in preparation for the Tokyo 2020 Summer Olympics, set to begin in late July. Canada will compete in Pool A with Poland, Italy, Iran, Venezuela, and the host nation, Japan. From Vancouver, Anthony Sevilla, Eagle News, always 1 with 25.
That's this week's Eagle News. Join us next week for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/eaglenews and on Facebook at facebook.com/eaglenews. Thank you for watching. I'm Thomas I. Likeness. I'm 1 with 25.